You're listening to the Bears Barroom Radio Network, and the following program is suitable for all audiences.
With Cole Kmet, this is really your classic, wide tight end with the prototypical size and just the athleticism we look for in the position. He's a big target, natural hands. He's really tough after the catch, and he has the strength and the temperament we want in the run game. With Jalen Johnson with our next pick, Jalen just a really good combination of size, athleticism, and awareness. He's that physical press corner that uses his size really well, uses his strength to his advantage to reroute receivers. Travis Gibson, the outside linebacker from Tulsa, just a tremendous upside as a pass rusher. There's just a lot of natural pass rush traits to him, and I think they all translate to our game very well. Kendall Mildor with our next pick. Just excellent football makeup. Another guy that went to the Senior Bowl and played well. So he's got high-end ball skills. He can play inside. He can play outside. We stress confidence when we talk about the corner position, and he definitely has that confidence and that play demeanor that we look for. With the next pick in the 5th round, we took Darnell Mooney from Tulane. This guy just has legit speed. He ran that 4.3 speed at the combine. Beyond that speed, his route quickness stands out. Just his ability to separate stands out. And then with a pair of 7th round picks, we went with 2 offensive linemen. The first one being Arlington Hambright, guard from Colorado. When I think of him, his athleticism jumps off on the tape right away. Lachavius Simmons from Tennessee State. Right away, his size and length jumps out. These are the type of guys that our offensive line coach, Juan Castillo, loves to work with.
Bearlissimo.
Welcome to Bearlissimo, the George Bayliss Show. My name is Aldo Gandia, and it is the week after the NFL draft, and George has tons of thoughts to share about who the Bears drafted and who they did not draft. And he also has a very special guest. George, it's all yours.
Adam Jahns is joining us today from the Athletic. If you don't follow the Bears Barroom and the Athletic, Adam Jahns and the Hogan Jahns podcast, I don't know what you are doing if you're following the Chicago Bears, because it's some of the most informative content you can possibly get. Adam, going to start me up today, I'm sure, with what's happened in the draft. So with that, pleased to have you on, Adam. Thanks for carving some time out for us today. How are you?
I'm doing fine, my friend. A lot better than the last time I saw you in person. Good to catch up and feel good about myself a little bit.
Well, I'm glad you're feeling good. My mental health isn't quite so good, I'm afraid. So without sort of taking, because you've only got limited time today, because you've got your own podcast coming out, which everyone should listen to as soon as it comes out. I'd like to get your take, not necessarily on the picks and the players themselves, but the values, because it's the article you've put out in the Athletic, which Aldo linked earlier, kind of points a little bit to it in terms of your first point where you're talking about possibility of trades. I'm wondering how that fits in with you with regards to what we've done with the off-season in terms of free agency, the players that were still on the board in positions of need, and the values of the picks themselves in the order in which we took them to the offense, as most of them were offensive players. Obviously, the defensive players, I actually think there's good value there. So I'd like to know what your thoughts are on that. And then if you can follow that up with whether you think that Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace have any spare rope left before the noose tightens around their neck, given that Nagy's got his choice of QBs, his tight ends, his coaches, and Pace has had far too many misses potentially in rounds 1 and 2 particularly, and free agency.
So let me start with your second question. I don't think that Matt Nagy or even Ryan Pace, I don't think they're at risk of losing their jobs after the season. It would take some type of Mark Trestman-like complete and utter breakdown where people are pointing fingers at each other and there's conflict in the newspapers and conflict on the Athletic and everybody has a problem with everybody for this to really go the other way. I think they're going to get time to fix this. Contractually, they have that time. Ryan Pace 2 years, Matt Nagy 3 years. Maybe Pace gets an extra year added to even things up with Nagy, but I don't think their seats are nearly as hot as some fans or even some media think they are. They're still viewed very, very favorably by the front office, ownership, and whatnot, Ted Phillips and company. To go back to your first question, like everybody, like I think that the big question I got after the draft is where's the offensive lineman? Why did they wait so long? Why did they pack up? Why did they pass on Ezra Cleveland and all that stuff? And I get it. I know you're an offensive line guy, my friend. Like, I'll just bring up one point just in terms of value. There is only one interior offensive lineman taken in the first round, and there was only one interior offensive lineman taken in the second round. That was Robert Hunt. So Cesar Ruiz out of Michigan was the guy in the first round. So if offensive guard is your number one concern, like right guard going into this draft, like I got to get a guy. This was a bad draft for that. There wasn't enough value for that to click for you. The other positions, like cornerback, maybe receiver, and even to a lesser extent, maybe tight end if a Cole Kmet was there, that's where you would find value. And I know the debate right now is whether or not the Bears overdrafted Cole Kmet. I don't know. Maybe he could have been there at 50. You will never be able to know that. I think we're all guilty of underrating how much Matt Nagy wanted a classic Y tight end. I think everybody's a bit obsessed with the U tight end because that was such a priority position when they signed Trey Burton. It's just different now. Like, this is Matt Nagy's evaluation of the offense. He wanted a Y tight end, and this is what they have. So maybe they overdrafted him. I don't think they did. I think it's still good value.
For me, I mean, I get where you're coming from with regards to particularly Pace and Nagy, and also where you're talking about tight end. But for me, in terms of where we're talking about a Y tight end or a U tight end, let's take a look at George Kittel in San Francisco. He wasn't known coming out of Iowa as being a particularly good blocker, nor for that matter is Cole Kmet coming out of Notre Dame known as being a good blocker. He's known as being an all-rounder, and you made a comparison, I believe, to Kyle Rudolph, and certainly that's one that's been put out there, which to me, when I look at him on tape, that's kind of what I'm seeing. If we wanted something that's closer to Kittel coming out of college, not the player he is now, I must stress, but for me, that tight end would have been Bryson Hopkins. I made it known. It's almost like I put a Christmas list out there, a draftmas list, if you will. I'll put it on Amazon. I did 300 different variations we could have picked from, and I've ended up coming away with socks and pants, which is what we seem to have in this draft. That's the best analogy I can think of in terms of what we got. Certainly in terms of wide receiver, if we want speed, who's going to threaten deep, rather than waiting till, the sixth round, which is where we took one, you had a choice of Denzel Mims or KJ Hamler, two of the most explosive wide receivers in this draft. Denzel Mims actually gives you a plus in terms of his ability to block on the exterior as a wide receiver. And I don't get why that wouldn't have been necessarily, even with the option in your article, point one, where you're talking about the trades that actually did happen in and around where the Bears were. I still think you could have had a Cole Kmet with one of those picks. Either if you traded 43 and moved back and picked up an extra pick, you could have still took him at 50, I believe. No other tight end came off until the third and fourth round. And even then, those tight ends, even later on, potentially are not that dissimilar in terms of talent level to Cole Kmet for me. Certainly, like I say, what I see on tape. So I was just a little bit disappointed with that. But it's going to be interesting to see sort of where this goes from here in terms of this year, because I think a lot of emphasis, I'm not sure whether you agree, Adam, but a lot of emphasis is now going to be on Nagy and the coaches that he's brought in, particularly the tight ends coach he brought in, Clancy Barone, to develop Cole Kmet, specifically for that purpose, and also the offensive line. Like you say, the two guys we did pick, one of them I actually really like, which is Hambright. He looks a really good player on tape. The second one, Lashavius Simmons, for me, you could have had an Alex Taylor out of South Carolina who would have been a potential tackle option. I'm not sure you needed more goes at guard when tackle clearly is an issue, given that Bobby Massey didn't finish the season and we don't have any depth behind him now. I wonder what your thoughts are in terms of the tackle position.
Yeah, so they're going to put a lot of they've gone all in. All their chips are in. All their money is in on Juan Castillo. I don't know if that's the wisest choice. I kind of understand the Bears concerns with the coaching. Last year, I think there were some concerns heading into the hire of a Harry Hiestand. I wanted to guard against, like, if I'm the Bears, it's important to guard against overdrafting certain players, right? And I think you had a case of that maybe in the second and third rounds with some of these offensive linemen. It didn't help that the Bears didn't have a third or fourth round pick. Like, that could have been a good wheelhouse to find a good developmental guy, right? The third and fourth rounds, like Jonah Jackson out of Ohio State. Like, if the Bears had a third round pick, like, that is ideal. Like, someone that, like a high quality offensive lineman with a lot of experience. The Bears just didn't have picks with that. I think my main thought, you said something about like Cole Kmet and receivers and whatnot. I think the Bears had two priorities. Like, if I had to rank the priorities of positions that they wanted to address in this draft, it was cornerback, number one. Number two was tight end, and they were willing to wait on a receiver. Like, when you hear Ryan Pace say that like a Darnell Mooney showed up on their scouting during the season, and then he turned him on to the coaches, where Mike Fury is banging the table for the guy. You know, that tells me, my friend, that they were willing to wait. Like, they did a lot of research in this guy to finding a speedy threat in the late rounds, knowing they didn't have enough ammunition to move up into the third and fourth, and that they needed to target a guy late in the draft, in the fifth round, sixth round, and Mooney became that guy. So that tells me how they had their priorities set. And that's why they passed on a Hamler. That's why they passed on a Mims. That's why they passed on other guys. You know, they had their priorities. Cornerback, 1 at 50, and tight end. They got the best one, at least in their opinion, at 43. And I like Bryson Hopkins, too. I want to add. I know the Bears did as well. I thought he was an option later in the fourth and fifth round if he was there, but obviously Cole Kmet was there for the taking at 43. Now, your question about the tackle. So, I don't know. Contractually, they are committed to Massey and Leno for this year, maybe even 2 years if you want to look at the money and how much dead money you're willing to eat. But there are concerns galore. And you know this, man. You analyze the offensive lines with the best of them, and there are widespread concerns across that offensive line. Like, I feel good about a Cody Whitehair. I feel okay with the James Daniels. Like, even if they want to learn Jermaine Afadi out there at right guard, I'm willing to see how that plays out. But those tackles, man, they're not getting any younger. They're not getting any more athletic. You know, I think their fundamentals are what they are at this point. It's on Juan Castillo to really, like, I don't want to say it's not about fundamentals with these guys. I think it's about lighting a fire under Charles Leno and getting him back to the level that he was at a couple of years ago.
I think Edge is it's another bit of a head scratcher. I actually quite like Gibson. I'll see what they're seeing him, but for me, the best value picks. What would be your choice for best value picks? I think Kindle Vildor is an excellent value where he was taken.
Yeah. You know, I'm actually intrigued by Travis Gipson. The more I've heard about him and read about him, just in terms of what his measurements can mean and how he's kind of a late bloomer, hearing about his, I hate to overrate intangibles and like the off the field work ethic and like what he wants to bring as a player, but all high regards there. And I think if you do it right, you can find a lot of value in the fourth, fifth, sixth rounds for pass rushers. I know the Ravens are the best examples of making that work. We know one of those guys really well. Pernell McPhee was one of those guys. We saw him come through Chicago here. If you do it right and you got, you know, time to invest in the guy, and you got guys like Robert Quinn and Khalil Mack kind of showing him the ropes, Gibson could pan out to be something. I'm not saying he's going to be an all-pro or a Pro Bowl-like player, but I'm thinking they could get something out of this guy in 1 or 2 years. I like the Mooney pick. I like the Vildor pick. You know, you look at some of the intangibles. It's clear that Ryan Pace has a type of player in terms of team captains, guys that, you know, lead by example, guys that are pretty no-nonsense off the field. That's the type he wants. It's the culture he's trying to build here, and all those guys fit that. I honestly think, you know, I know it's a two-pick history, but in terms of trading up, everybody always, you know, points their fingers at Ryan Pace for doing it too much. But he's got two of them in his history, George, and you know this. Eddie Jackson traded up for, and Nick Kwiatkowski traded up for in the fourth round. Those panned out.
Anthony Miller.
Well. Yeah, Anthony Miller in the second round. But, like, just in terms of the middle rounds, you know, like those have worked out. Even Anthony Miller to a lesser extent. And, you know, I'm willing to trust their board, at least in the middle rounds, fifth round, which has been the Adrian Amos round, the Jordan Howard round, the Bilal Nichols round. Those are all starters that Ryan Pace found in the fifth round. So I'm willing to trust his valuations there because the history says that he can find players.
I think the development as well, Adam, in terms of what we've actually got as coaches, if you're looking at defensive line and edge, we seem to have really good development in terms of coaching and sort of getting the most juice out of those players. So I think it's definitely worth a swing. It's going to be interesting to see how these guys pan out. So for those that don't yet have a subscription to The Athletic or follow you on Twitter, Adam, what should they do?
Just check it. Really click any links that we put out on Twitter. You can follow me, Adam Jahns, Jahns. And we got this great deal going on, 90 days, free trial, cancel anytime. So even if you want to come in, come out, check out all our draft coverage over the next couple of days at camp. Just give us a shot. There's a lot there. It's more than just me. It's Kevin Fishbane, Dan Pompey, Dan Durkin, John Greenberg, and then you got all the national guys. There's a lot of coverage there. Give us a run. Stop in, check out the site for a week or two. Get out if you don't like it, but give us a try. We got a lot of stuff there.
The great thing about The Athletic as well is it's multi-sports. You can even gift a subscription to someone if you think they need to be educated. So if you know another Bears fan that doesn't particularly have great takes and you want to help educate them, why not gift them as a subscription to The Athletic, as one of my good friends did for me. It certainly worked wonders for me, Adam. Thank you so much for your time today. Is there anything else you'd like to leave us with?
No. You know what? This is a story I'm going to work on in the next couple of weeks, so maybe something for you to think about and discuss, like how good can the Bears defense be and how far they could take it. Just a conversation piece to think about, going forward here as we get through the virtual off-season program.
Okay, and when is your podcast start, the one you're recording today?
We're recording here in about 5 to 10 minutes. My man Hulk's probably getting anxious, but we'll have fun. I'll say hi to Forum too.
Please pass on my best. All the best. All the best, Adam. Thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it, and I hope you get a chance to listen later, as I will for you.
We'll do. No
care.
Problem. Anytime, my friend. Take care.
Better.
Good stuff there, George Bayliss with Adam Jahns of The Athletic, and I am a subscriber of The Athletic, and I got to tell you, I love it. I think that there's some outstanding writing. One of the cool features that they have is at the bottom of every article, you can provide feedback on whether you liked the article, whether you didn't like the article, whether you just thought it was meh. And that's a great way for that publication, that internet publication, to kind of keep track of the quality of the work, what the fans, what the readers want. It's a nice touch, and I find myself probably 90% of the time saying that I thought the article was awesome. They've got a good writing team there and a great guest, George.
Well, thank you. I mean, Adam's just a thoroughly decent bloke. If you ever get a chance to meet him and have a beer with him, bend an elbow, as they say over here. So he's a great guy for that. But in terms of The Athletic, without turning this into a commercial for it, I also love Aldo, and I'm sure you do as well, is that you get a natural opportunity as a subscriber to leave comments and to feed back to people. And they actually look at these comments and they reply to you, which is amazing in terms of if you want access to someone. Twitter, they might not always see it, but certainly all the writers that I've ever sent a comment to on The Athletic, it's always had a response. So they're fantastic in terms of engagement like that, as we try to be here on the Bar Room. Adam is a great follow. I like his points that he's raised. I don't necessarily agree with sort of the values in the second round and things like that, but we'll get on to that. But his article, Aldo, I don't know if you saw it. I know for a fact you saw it because you actually put a link to it today. So people should check out that tweet from the Bears Bar Room account, because there is actually a link to the article that Adam put out there, and there were 2 points that I'd like to cover on that, if it's okay.
Please.
So the first point is actually point number one that he's put on there. The trade bet that everyone expected to happen in the second round, it didn't happen, but that's okay. Now, the but that's okay bit, I don't necessarily agree with, but I've made that obvious. Like I say, for me, this was Draftmas that I was really looking forward to. I dropped loads of hints, Aldo, to my Bears family. I gave them a shopping list on a website, and I put 300 different options on there that they could have gone to. And like I say, I ended up with some plaid socks and some tighty whities off that list instead of the Xbox 3, the Xbox One Plus, the PS5, all the rest of it. None of that. I got a pair of underpants and a pair of socks from it. But the point that he's making in this article is that when they were looking at the values, there were trades. The Browns traded 41 to the Colts for 44 and 160. So 160 would have been a pick in the fourth round, 146 to 145 point swap. And they traded. They got Jonathan Taylor. There were still running backs on the board at this point. There were wide receivers on the board. There were offensive linemen with teams that are offensive line needy. Minnesota Vikings. I'm talking about you. And to a lesser degree, the Packers now. The Jets traded 48 to the Seahawks for 59 and 101. That would have been okay. Probably could have still got Cole Kmet at 59. No other tight end had gone before then. That would have given us an extra pick, and we still would have had, don't forget, 50 in our trade. 60 and 129 went to the Patriots for numbers 71 and 98, 2 third-round picks.
Right.
And the 60 pick is what they got Josh Uche at. So potentially, if we're talking about moving back, you could have still had Kmet if you want Kmet in the third round. If you'd have picked up a pick there, you could have still took him at 50 if you wanted to take him there. And cornerback, you could have took with one of the extra picks, but you could have potentially got your edge rusher or your speed wide receiver with the extra picks that you picked up. It is what it is at the end of the day, but it's an interesting thing, I think, certainly for the Bears fans that are listening and those who listen to Bears Bar Room, the excellent content. And Aldo, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to do what we do at the Bar Room. Nothing happens without you, my friend, and it's a fantastic opportunity. I loved the Bar Room before I ever got an opportunity to have a show on it. And that feeling hasn't changed. It's fantastic content. I listen to all the shows. It's brilliant stuff. So thank you so much for that. But I wonder what your take is, Aldo, on that potential trade back, that point one from Adam's article.
Well, I was going to ask you a question regarding that.
Sure.
Do you think that Ryan Pace gets too enamored with the players that they target, that it comes at the expense of having a kind of more panoramic view of the possibilities that you can do in the draft, like trading down or other possibilities?
I think that's absolutely what he does. He seems to get fixated on certain players, and when he says that, it's like I don't know, if you're looking for. You see a ticket on an item that you want to get. It's a pair of, I don't know, let's say it's a pair of running shoes that you've wanted for ages, and you see it, and then all of a sudden you see a sale price on it. And as soon as that sale price comes on there, pick number 43, and you see that pair of trainers. Doesn't matter whether those trainers are normally retailing at 80 and are down to, you could still get for 60. If you see, if it's only worth a certain amount, just because you think it's an opportunity to get it here and now isn't necessarily the best time to do it. I know it's a bit of a reverse because we're talking about going up instead of going down instead of up, but you could have still got greater value with a later pick and still got the same pair of trainers. So it's like that in reverse, in effect. That, for me, Ryan Pace has overdrafted, certainly in the first 2 rounds, more often than not. Adam Shaheen, another example, we're talking about tight end position again and his evaluation of that position. If you want to go to free agency, Trey Burton, look how that's turned out. So I'm concerned with his evaluation of tight end anyway,
right.
And I'm also concerned with his. He seems to get fixated on certain players, and if that player is there, no, we're not going to move back because I don't want to miss out on getting this player. The fact that there might be other positions which are equally important in terms of free agency are a higher cost to get a free agent in the position, and you have some free agents coming up very soon at those positions, and you've got an opportunity to get a guy on the board there that's round one quality, doesn't necessarily then mean that the guy that you got your stickers all over is the guy that you should go and get. You should take, if you're going to say you're going to take the best value available, you should take the best value available and not necessarily the guy that you really like.
Bear Truth 9 in the chat room says that Pace definitely believes in his own work and opinion, which is probably why he's moved up the ladder so quickly in the NFL. Badge 40 in the chat room, taking some time away from his job to listen in. He says he definitely believes Kmet could have been had later, just as you said, and Rel Ramey agrees with your point of view on this. I got to ask you a question that came in from Grant Sims a little while ago. He said,
sure.
Just like so many many of our fans who have fallen in love with Jesper Horsted, do you think that Horsted might be released before Adam Shaheen, who the Bears have a huge investment in? And I'll take that even further. A guy that I like a lot, Dax Raymond, and a guy that I believe should have some time to develop. Would you hate to see a guy like Raymond or a guy like Horsted released before Adam Shaheen, or are you still holding out that the former second-round draft pick can play NFL football?
I moved on from Adam Shaheen before the start of last season, if I'm honest. Mm-hmm. Shortly after it being a pick, and then him sort of catching a touchdown against, I think it was the Vikings, and then concussing himself on the same play and being out for weeks on end. I kind of moved on from Shaheen from that point of view. He's always been stiff in terms of the way he runs, which is my concerns about Cole Kmet's route running as it stands at the moment, Aldo. I've got to say, there's an opportunity he might improve that. I'm hoping he does. I'm hoping he proves me wrong in terms of the value. In terms of Jesper Horsted, I see a guy whose blocking improved immeasurably last year from the start of the season to where he was at the end of the season. Yeah. His effort and tenacity in blocking improved probably 2 or 3-fold, if not more. The guy he's always been a receiving threat. We've known that. His ability to be able to contort and adjust his body to catches is excellent. He gives really good, assured, safe hands in terms of he's got some speed away from the line. He's improving his craft as a tight end. I would much rather see Adam Shaheen go with a bigger cap saving than it would be to cut a Jesper Horsted, who is the same sort of age. He's quicker, has shown a bigger improvement in terms of blocking, and hasn't had a missed game. When he's not been playing, it's because they've not played him. They've played other players instead. It's not because he's not available to play. He's always been available to play, and that's a guy who's converted position and is already shown greater development than a guy we took in the second round. So I think it's time to move on from Shaheen. If I'm being honest, I'm certain there's not going to be many people who are going to be arguing against me on that point in terms of it's time to move on from Adam Shaheen. I'm surprised he's still on the roster. Dax Raymond, on the other hand, was a 24 or 25-year-old rookie.
Yeah, I got breaking news. I don't know if you knew this. I didn't know it. Rob Rossetti's just informed us, and I've confirmed it, that Dax Raymond was released last night by the Chicago Bears, so he's no longer on the roster. I think that's a shame.
Yeah. I'd seen he'd already gone. I thought that's what you were talking about.
I thought he was still with the roster. Oh, my gosh.
No, Dax was released yesterday. No, he's like I say, he was a 24, 25-year-old rookie. He had some injury concerns as it was. In terms of development, he already kind of maxed out. He was a high floor player given his age. So in terms of his ability to improve and that sort of thing, like I say, there are other guys I'm more intrigued with on the roster than a Dax Raymond. I am still, and maintain, shocked and stunned that Adam Shaheen is still on this roster. And I think had he not been a second-round pick of Ryan Pace recently, that he wouldn't be.
Yeah.
I expect him to be going very shortly. I don't see the value of him. I'd rather keep a Broniker over an Adam Shaheen.
Yeah.
And even then, that would be for the special teams play, not the production on the field. In terms of the guys we've got now, you've got to look at your starters as being Jimmy Graham, Cole Kmet, and Demetrius Harris as your 3. And then Jesper Horsted would be my 4th. JP Holtz I would keep as a fullback. So he would be my stroke 5th tight end fullback as an addition and an added benefit. But the rest of the guys are much of a muchness. There's going to be guys there. I think most of the other tight ends that are available on the roster, which is there's 5 or 4. Those guys you're probably going to be able to sneak and have eligibility to go onto the practice squad, and I think they're probably going to be safe there. So if we want to keep more tight ends and keep on developing people, Darian Clark, people like that, there's the opportunity to do that on the practice squad.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, what else from this Jahns article did you want to address? Because he's got a lot of great points in here.
Yeah, the tight end usage is one of the things he gets on to talking about. And the tight end usage, when he compares the 2 other offenses which we're looking at, and total plays-wise, it's quite surprising to know that total plays, Bears at 1,013, Eagles at 1,037, Chiefs at 996 because they don't need as many plays to score. So 1 running back, 2 tight ends, 12 formation. Bears have 173. Yeah, so this is the two tight end formation that we want to run apparently, and we haven't in 2 years because these numbers for the Bears are virtually identical. Year 1 where we went 12-4, year 2 where we went 8-8. The figures are virtually identical in terms of usage. Now I know that the tight end room probably was identical in those 2 years as well, but don't forget the first year we actually had a very productive Trey Burton. Second year we didn't. We had a lot of flux at the position. So I think the first year being echoed in the second year, yes, we had the variation in terms of the injuries at the position, but we didn't have a variation in terms of the number of snaps. We had a two tight end formation. So 173 snaps for the Bears, Eagles 356. Eagles obviously have got two very good tight ends, and the Chiefs at 281. So one running back, one tight end, 11 formation. We're at 604, the other two teams at 560, 589. The Bears very often had two running backs and one tight end, 21 formation. There we were much higher in terms of the times that we actually had that formation on the field. So running backs probably we use a lot more. Tight ends we use a lot less, and we definitely use wide receivers, extra wide receivers more in our formations than the other teams in terms of variation. And that affects, let's not forget that this affects run plays. Where you're in very obvious passing formations like 5 wide receivers or 4 wide receivers and 1 running back, you're more likely to pass out of that than you are to run. And if you are, it's likely to be a draw. When we're looking at those sorts of things, you're much less likely to run. And if you do, it means that they can sort of play press, they can play in the box and then back out of it. Where you've got two tight ends on the field, you legitimately run or pass. You've got bigger bodies in the box. You're going to commit the defensive backs into the line of scrimmage because they're going to have to honour the run because you've got bigger bodies on the field to run block. Mm-hmm. If you're not doing that, which the Bears haven't, you're going to have people show at the line and bail, which is what's killed us. The Packers have done it the last 2 years running. They've shown 7 at the line of scrimmage, they're back 3 or 4 out. And then you've got, we've held in people to max protect. We've got less people running out on routes, and then they've got more defensive backs. That's what's caused the biggest issue for Mitch Trubisky in terms of this offense, is not knowing whether they're all coming and the offensive line is going to fall over, which has happened a lot. And also, if they back out, then we've only got 2 wide receivers on an actual route and a running back as a dump off when we're in 3rd and long. Mm-hmm. And he's got nowhere to go because there's 7 defensive backs out there. So this is the thing, is that if Nagy is going to change his play calling, he's going to use 2 tight ends. We're going to see this with Jimmy Graham, Cole Kmet, Demetrius Harris, that variation, any 2 of those 3. If we're going to see that, then it's a good pick. If we're not going to see that, we're still going to see 11 formation or 21, then there's no value in taking Cole Kmet in the 2nd round. Depends upon, obviously, how he progresses from there. But that's one of the issues. And the other things that he talks about in the article, Adam, he talks about Kmet, Gibson, Vildor, and Jalen Johnson have all been praised by work ethic from every single person in their colleges. And Vildor and Mooney were both captains at their teams. So, you've met Kindle Vildor. Mm-hmm. When you look at him and you see that he's 5'10" and he's like 190 pounds, yet 220 pounds he put up 22 times. The guy and ran 4.44, 11'7" broad jump, 39.5-inch vertical. The guy clearly works in the gym. But when you watch him play against LSU, Alabama, teams like that, Clemson in the previous year, mm-hmm. Go and watch those. He's playing against people like Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, mm-hmm. and the best receivers that Alabama's got to offer, Jerry Jeudy and people like that, and Ruggs 3. Guys that have gone in the 1st round. He never backed down to anyone, and he played really good coverage. He even came away with a few pass breakups in those games, and on a team that is vastly inferior to those college teams that he was playing against. Never dropped his head, never complained. Never threw his arms up in the air or beat the turf because someone missed a tackle. Was always encouraging and pointing people out. I think he's an excellent pick. And I think that sort of the fact that he's talking about that, team captain, I think that sort of points to a potentially bright future for the Bears.
Well, it's interesting. When I talked to him down at Mobile, I asked him what game tape would you suggest for a scout to take a look at as an example of your level of play and your best game? And he immediately said the Clemson game, which was the same game that Ryan Pace referred to on Saturday afternoon after the draft was done, and he talked about his acquisitions for day 3 of the draft. And Ryan Pace went on and talked about Kindle Wilder's traits, much like the way you did 2-3 days before the draft, and you went down, one of your mock picks and talked about Wilder's strengths and his ability to flip his hips and his competitive approach and his team work ethic and so forth. So you and Pace may not have been on board in terms of trading draft picks, but we were definitely in agreement on Kindle Wilder.
I think Kindle Wilder. I think both the cornerbacks that we took. If Jalen Johnson is over his injury issues, and hopefully with the Bears, nutrition, the facilities they've got, the nutritionists, the strength and conditioning people, hopefully they get on top of any issues that have been causing these labrum tears he's had, of which he's had 3. Cole Kmet as well. Let's not forget, had a broken clavicle. Which he came back in, speedy time, but it's still an injury, a significant injury for anyone that wants to use their upper body, particularly in terms of blunt force trauma. If you've ever had a broken collarbone, it really affects your ability to be able to punch somebody, which you need to do as a tight end quite frequently. It's one of the important things you do as a tight end. So there are some injury concerns with some of these guys, but in terms of, like you say, Kindle Wilder, Jalen Johnson, they are both able to either play off or impress. So that's it gives Pagano much more options in terms of being able to play. Prince Amukamara was horrible in off-man because he's not a physical tackler, and he knew it. Right. So he sometimes came up out of control. He was much better sort of playing trail techniques, so up at the line of scrimmage, able to turn and flip his hips, run with the wide receiver, and almost run their route as well as they were. That was Prince's strong point. Kyle Fuller obviously is more of an off-man or off-zone corner. The great thing about Kindle Wilder and Jalen Johnson is they're both able to play off-man or impress. It gives you more options when you're looking to bring people and what you're looking to do with your defense. So I love the way they're able to keep their hips neutral in back pedal. I love the way they're able to then flip and mirror. I love the fact that they're very handsy, although they're sort of very... the thing that I talked about last year, I don't even remember, I spoke about David Long from Michigan. Mm-hmm. And one of the traits that I really liked about David Long from Michigan was he was able to very craftily put his hand in front of the wide receiver who's running to his outside, use the sideline as an extra defender, keep one hand on them, and be able to then turn back to look at playing the ball. But really what he's doing is keeping the hands down from coming up to catch the ball. Mm-hmm. Jalen Johnson is an absolute master at that. 97-yard interception return for a touchdown, 4 defensive touchdowns in his career at Utah. He is a ball hawk, and so is Kindle Wilder. I mean, he showed that at the Senior Bowl. He got an interception, didn't he? Yeah. So I love those picks. I think they're great. Travis Gipson, I think, is high upside. Very traits, very, very, very long arms. He's got quite violent hand usage, actually. He's not refined in it, so that's where I think they're going to be able to improve him is in working on his hand usage and in his first step. Sometimes he's a little bit slow off the snap, but other times he looks like he's an absolute rocket. He's fast for his size, so he's a good upside pick. Darnell Mooney is so fast. I mean, I would love to have seen him at one of the All-Star games. I think was he at the East-West, Darnell Mooney?
Collegiate Bowl, I believe it was.
Yeah, the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl. I'm going to have to go back and take a look at the tape on that, I think, because that will be against better competition than he played most of the time at Tulane. But at Tulane, what I saw was him being able to beat coverage, get loads of separation from the defender, and then that separation going because the quarterback couldn't get the ball there. But, 4.38, you can't really... you're either fast or you're not, and that's really fast. The pick that is low-key excellent for me is Arlington Hambright. Former JUCO. He played at 2, I think it was Pac-12 teams, I think it was.
Yes.
Colorado, one of them, yeah.
Correct. And was it Oklahoma State?
OK State, yeah. What I love about him, Aldo, is he is fast and he's got great movement laterally and in terms of he's able to block with one hand. He's a perfect zone scheme. He's perfect for the zone scheme, which is what I love about him. Moving him to guard, the only concern is his weight, because he is a little bit on the lighter side for guard. But in terms of having to play Kenny Clark, I wouldn't worry about him being able to pick up the lateral movement, because what Kenny Clark does, which has been an absolute nightmare for the Bears, is he comes across the face of a guard and centre and penetrates the hole that way. So he's not only is he big and he's strong and he's able to ball rush you, he's able to take a very broad lateral step, not lose speed, and penetrate the hole going across the face of the offensive lineman. I wouldn't have an issue with Arlington Hambright's ability to be able to mirror him and to react to him in terms of speed. He also shows great body angle when he's blocking, keeps his hips nice and low, his chest nice and upright, good hand punch, great zone blocker. So I love him as a pick. Lashavius Simmons, I don't get, because he was, again, a left guard. So Arlington Hambright was a left tackle. Lashavius Simmons was a left guard. I saw him falling over, even in his highlights, numerous amounts of times. That's because his base is quite narrow and his body is quite upright. He's a bit of a waist bender for me. I don't get the pick, because for me, there was Alex Taylor, South Carolina State. You saw him at the Senior Bowl, Aldo. In the guy with the longest wingspan, the biggest arms, and all the rest of it. He has got much better movement and probably would be more suited to his own blocking scheme, but would give you upside as a tackle with all that length and that movement ability. For me, there was more clay with him than there is with Lashavius Simmons, but I'm hopeful that Lashavius proves me wrong, as I hope that all the ones are maybe not as high as others are. I hope they all prove me wrong in terms of exceeding expectations, and I think that largely is going to come down to Clancy Barone, Coach Castillo, and Coach Furry.
Yeah.
In terms of his ability to improve Darnell Mooney. Coach Furry, why wasn't Riley Ridley getting onto the field? That's a question I think we need to ask. Was it a case of trust with Nagy? Was it, as rumours were, that he said or did something wrong to Nagy and sort of voiced his displeasure and was in the doghouse for half of the season? These are all players that I think we had an opportunity in the last 2 games of the season, Aldo, to see a lot more from, and we missed that opportunity. Same with Alex Bars. People are talking about writing Alex Bars off because Coach Heaston's gone. I don't think that's the case.
Absolutely not.
I think Coach Castillo is the kind of guy that will give a blank slate to everyone. Alex Bars has really good technique. He has good footwork. He keeps his hips nice and low, and he's got very heavy hands. I think Coach Castillo will see that that's something to work with there, and whether he gets an opportunity to start at right tackle or guard. But I think he's a dark horse to get one of those positions potentially going into the season, as he knows the scheme a little bit better than some of the guys that are coming in, and a Fady or a Jason Spriggs, or obviously the guys that we've brought in as late draft picks. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I like right now, I like the depth at the offensive line position. Whether any of those guys is going to play to the highest level, I don't know. But there's definitely a lot of names there. There should be a lot of people fighting for jobs. And the competition obviously is good. And you left out the other Notre Dame kid who was in the practice squad, Sam Mustafa.
Yeah, center.
Who I really liked a lot. And it was nice that they were able to stash him away, and we'll see if he can progress and provide some interior offensive line protection. Hey, I wanted to shift gears here. As part of Adam Jahns' 5 Points article in The Athletic, he talked about the quarterback position. It's completely fair, he writes, to question the Bears' decision not to draft a quarterback. He writes, in the 7th round, James Madison, Ben DiNucci looked like an option, and DiNucci ended up being drafted by the Cowboys after those 2 offensive linemen were chosen by Pace, and DiNucci did say that the Bears were in contact with him about signing an undrafted free agent deal. What are your thoughts about not drafting a quarterback and letting guys like DiNucci and Anthony Gordon, one of my favorites, go by?
I can't make any sense of it at all as an analyst. When I look at the value of the position, and you look at having someone to develop at the position, I can't make any sense of it. You much better chance of getting Lashavius Simmons on an undrafted free agent deal than you are to get your choice of quarterback. There are 2 quarterbacks you mentioned there that quite possibly said you've got a pick coming up. if you draft me, then great. But if you don't draft me, I'm gonna look elsewhere. And there's Danucci being one of them. They probably got wind of the fact, and when he was probably asked by one of the other teams, have you already got any undrafted free agent offers? Yes, I have, from X, Y, and Z. Okay, then we'll take you with this last pick that we've got, which is a compensatory, which is what happened. We've been left with virtually nothing in terms of an option for a developmental quarterback. Tyler Bray is not it. So there is a guy that's still out there that I think, we've had as a guest someone who has worked with him and speaks very highly of him, which is locked-in QB Austin Carter-Samuels, former quarterback coach at Mizzou. Kelly Bryant was a once four-star recruit of Clemson and had some starting experience at Clemson, and then went and played a season at Mizzou and did okay there. He's had a fall from grace, and there's clearly some issues there around him, but that guy still hasn't got a free agent offer. So why don't the Bears get on the phone, give him a tryout, and at least then you've got an extra arm to be able to throw it. If there is a rookie minicamp, you've got an extra arm to bring into that, and potentially, if no one's given him an undrafted free agent deal so far, I'd think he's probably a very, very safe bet to be able to stash him on a practice squad. I think the higher likelihood is, Aldo, is that we are looking at other teams that have currently got guys on the roster that are young and developmental that are not going to get a roster spot in the 53. I think that's probably where we're looking at in terms of quarterback, as a developmental quarterback. We're waiting for someone to cut somebody else, because I think there's a lot of quarterbacks taken in the last couple of years that have shown high upside that are going to be released from the teams that they're currently on. I think there's a fairly strong list of those types of players that will be going elsewhere.
Well, and let me throw in a couple of names of current NFL free agents that should be considered. What about Trevor Siemian, who played his college football here at Northwestern and played, 2 or 3 seasons with the Denver Broncos? I mean, you got to bring in some camp arms. You can't go to camp with just 3 quarterbacks. So what about if Trevor Siemian gives you a team-friendly 1-year deal? What do you think about that quarterback?
I'm not sure he's going to be what you would class as a developmental player. I mean, I think he's developed probably as far as he's going to go in terms of NFL. He's had some starting experience at the end of the day. If you were looking for depth, like a number 2, he's potentially a name to consider for that role as a purely backup with the opportunity. If worst case scenario hits and we've got no one available to run on Thursday, it's better than Tyler Bray. Put it that way. So if you want a third quarterback, I mean, bring him in and cut Tyler Bray, release Tyler Bray. But I'm not sure Siemian has practice squad eligibility anymore, as he's started too many games in the actual NFL. Where you need people to actually play. Tyler Bray clearly hasn't, and so he's got practice squad eligibility. I can't make the sense of that, because if he's good enough to play like Trevor Siemian was in patches, he's probably good enough to have on your squad. Whereas a guy who hasn't been able to play on any team that he's been on, I'm not sure the value of keeping around a sort of 26, 27-year-old on the practice squad to develop. But like I say, I think there's a number of younger guys that are other teams. You look at the depth chart of various different teams in the NFL now. They've got sort of 4 and 5 quarterbacks. Even teams that wear green and puke green and yellow, have got guys that are in their practice squads. Lots of other teams as well where they've got lots of quarterbacks. San Francisco, for example, is another team that has at least a couple of people there that are potentially practice squad type players, developmental quarterbacks that we could potentially look at.
Let's, while we're talking about filling out the roster at the running back position, I was surprised that they did not draft the running back, given that the room right now has David Montgomery, Ryan Nall, Tariq Cohen, and Tariq Cohen and Cordero Patterson can be kind of considered gadget running backs. And so the only true running backs are Montgomery and Ryan Nall. They did add Artavius Pierce and Napoleon Maxwell. What do you know about those guys? And do you think the team should be on the lookout for, let me phrase this question differently. Do you think the team must bring in another body?
Well, Napoleon Maxwell was, when I looked at the tape that I saw on him, there was a lot of time where he was running back in the backfield, who was lined up in the slot, and they ran him across and sort of had him on jet sweeps and things like that. There wasn't so many times when he was the only back in the backfield and running between the tackles. He is quick and shifty. He's a one-cut runner, limited athleticism. He's not the player that Artavis Pierce is, another Beaver that we've added to the Bears. Bears love Beaver, what can I say? He's actually quite an impressive runner. When you go and look at the tape on him, he has a second gear in terms of being able to break away, and he's a good one-cut runner in terms of we run a zone scheme predominantly. He certainly shows the ability to be able to read his blocks and to cut back to hole. He seems to have fairly good vision. People are talking about, other scouts I've seen talking about him, I might be wrong on this, but what I'm seeing on tape is actually he's got good contact balance for his size. He runs low, as in he gets very skinny and compact and small running into the hole, which is why he's actually quite effective inside the 10-yard line when you watch him at Oregon State. He's actually pretty good inside the 10, so he's a name that could potentially stick for the Bears. I think he's quicker than a Ryan Nall, nowhere near the same size as Ryan Nall, but he looks sort of shifty, good contact balance, and able to catch the ball as well, which is a plus. He looks like a good pickup for me as an undrafted free agent.
Yeah.
Ahmad Wagner is another name that I think Bears looking at as well. I know Aaron's probably going to love having a Kentucky wide receiver, and he's listed as wide receiver as well, because a lot of people are talking about him, a former basketball player. He's only played one season of football at Kentucky, and not a lot of highlights of him, but in terms of his ability to get in and out of breaks at his size, right, he runs fairly decent routes. So, yeah, I mean, try him at wide receiver, but potentially that could be a developmental tight end in the future. But like I say, we've got Thomas Ives, sort of similar in some ways to Thomas Ives, but obviously he's bigger and probably got a little bit better hops.
Before I forget, I wanted to ask you this question that was posed by Rob Rossetti. It's on the other side of the football. When you were talking about Trevis Gipson, he mentioned that Adam Hogue has compared Gipson to Matt Judon of the Ravens. Do you agree with that?
No. No, I don't see him. I don't see Matt Judon. The guy that I do see is a former Bears player that always used to describe himself as a defensive end, but ended up playing outside linebacker for us and used to go fishing a lot.
Willie Young.
Yeah, I think you know who I'm talking about. Willie Young. You are correct. That's actually who he reminds me of, but probably a little bit more athletic than Willie Young. But in terms of body shape and size, length of arm, his ability to be able to sort of stack on the outside, he did a lot of moved inside on pass rush downs as well, so he's got an opportunity to go out of a 3-point stance as well, but he's going to be an outside linebacker by all accounts from what we've seen, and if he's able to get his get off a little bit quicker, he's certainly got the speed and the athleticism to be able to run, bend the edge, get nice and low, dip and rip, swat down hands. He shows those abilities. He's a work in progress in terms of his hand usage, but he as Rel's just said in the chat room, he does play hard. What I do like about him is he always keeps fighting against the run. So whatever the blocker is trying to do, he seems to have a natural ability to feel what the blocker is doing. And as a defensive end, that's a really important quality. You got to feel what the defense is doing. So if they go away from you, you've got to crash down and stay square, because it could be coming back your way as a counter or something like that. So you do what they call squeezing down the line. He does that naturally. When two players come his way, he fights the double team like crazy. So I like the effort. I like his athleticism. I like how long his limbs are. He's got a knack for knocking the ball away, which is always a nice knock to have as an edge rusher. I also like the fact that he's a lot of clay to work with. And as we said, two of our better coaches, it seems, in terms of development of the players that we've had, are outside linebacker and defensive end, the defensive line, Jay Rogers. Those are the guys that seem to be able to get the best out of the guys that we've had so far. But yeah, I like Gipson. I have actually had him in some of my mock drafts. I know I've done 600 different mock drafts.
Well, you're under 1,000. You're doing
in
well.
March and April. I'm only at 15 so far, Aldo, on 2021. You'll be happy to hear.
I was going to ask you how many. So 15, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. Hey, another question came in, this from BT9. He wonders if you had an opportunity to take a look at any of the tape on Ladarius Mack, Khalil Mack's brother.
Yeah, so he's a guy who hasn't played a lot of football, but got an opportunity at Buffalo, obviously where Khalil Mack went to. Looks almost like a clone, slightly shorter clone of his brother. Obviously incredibly athletic, rocks up physique at his size, 6'1", but 250 pounds, and there's no fat on him. And he's incredibly quick. So in terms of at the NFL level, he's going to be a bit of a headless chicken running around. He's not going to be able to necessarily run and know exactly what it is he's got to do. But he's got a pretty good mentor there to teach him what the outside linebacker position of the Bears and the playbook is. So he's going to have an opportunity to develop. What I really like about Mack is he is a guy that you can play as a middle linebacker, you can play him as an outside linebacker, and he's going to be an absolute ace on special teams, something he did really well at Buffalo. I actually like the upside of him. So, again, he's probably going to be a practice squad player, but I can see him sticking around on the practice squad player because he's incredibly fast and he's very strong at for his height, weight combination. He's very strong for his size. But on things like stunts and twists and things like that, he's so fast. He's Roquan Smith type fast. Mm-hmm. So he's that kind of quick. Certainly that's the way he seems. His acceleration is almost instant in terms of closing in on a quarterback. And he did show development over his year at Buffalo. Mm-hmm. And I think, like you say, as a coach off the field, somebody who's going to work with him, somebody who's known for his work ethic and known for his animosity and the way that he plays, he's going to have some great coaching, isn't he, off the field as well from his brother.
Yeah, indeed.
And I don't think anyone will be harder on him than his brother would be.
You're absolutely right. And the very first day of practice with the Chicago Bears, Khalil Mack looked over at a couple of Bears players and told them, "Come on, let's pick this up. That's not the way we practice." So he's going to be just as tough. You better believe it, and maybe tougher on his baby brother, no doubt about it. Hey, I know we've only got a few minutes here left. There were some undrafted free agents, perhaps, that you left out in your evaluation that you want to squeeze in?
Yeah, but Badara Traore, the reserve right tackle at LSU, he shows, for me, he's heavy-handed and slow-footed. So although he was a right tackle at LSU, I think if he's going to have a chance to stick, it's going to be inside at guard. Mikael London is interesting in terms of as a 3-4 defensive end. Because we've got some one-year deals at defensive end currently on the roster. You know, we the guy we picked up last year was on waivers. Can't remember his name, but there was a guy that we picked up as defensive end. We renewed him this year on a one-year deal. He's going to have an opportunity to stick as a 3-4 defensive end, but that's obviously a very deep group. So Mikael London is going to be an interesting one to watch because someone like him, with the level of collegiate play that he came from, a local guy again, if we're talking about feel-good stories, he's going to have an opportunity to learn from some of the best guys in the business in terms of defensive linemen. If he follows Akeem Hicks and if Akeem takes him under his wing, he's got an opportunity to develop and potentially again be a contributor into the future. But in terms of the guys we picked up in undrafted free agency, there's no one there that really screams out as me as being a potential roster spot other than Artavis Pierce and possibly Ladarius Mack as a special teamer, or Ahmad Wagner if he shows the ability to make some splash plays as and when we get a training, any sort of training camp that we might have. So that's going to be their opportunity. But in terms of those guys we've got as undrafted free agents, there's no one else really I can see that potentially might be on the roster on the 53. There would be potentially a couple of practice squad players there maybe. I don't see the kind of impact that we've had previously in undrafted free agency in terms of getting onto the roster.
Let me if you're done, let me squeeze in a couple of quick questions from the chat room. Slinky20 is already looking forward to that 2021 NFL draft and speculating that the Bears are going to pick up a quarterback, and I would agree they're finally going to pick up another quarterback. And do you think that with what is going on with COVID-19 2019 that this is going to be a harder year for scouts to evaluate quarterbacks?
It depends whether we get a collegiate football season. Hopefully we do. I mean, it looks like certainly America is gonna go back in terms of sports, maybe in closed venues and things like that. But it looks like they're going to go back to playing sports and things like that. So hopefully we do get a collegiate football season. And there's no reason why scouts shouldn't be in attendance, because there'd be enough space for them to be there. It wouldn't be safe necessarily for crowds to be there, but certainly NFL scouts and people like that, it would be safe for them to be there to be able to scout people. And it's going to be an interesting viewing experience as well, because you're going to hear probably audibles and you're going to hear calls and you're going to hear people talking on the field, so you'll know who's a good communicator and who's not. So there's going to be some added things you probably wouldn't even see or hear if you are actually at the stadium, because there'd be too much crowd noise ordinarily. So in some ways there might be some benefits to it in terms of scouting. Mm-hmm. But so long as there's actually some games going on, I don't think it's going to necessarily impact a scout's ability to be able to evaluate players. And whether the GM takes any notice of them or not is a different matter.
Yeah. And our good friend Fat Mike, who had a sensational show yesterday on the Fat Mike Sports Talk Show here at the Bears Ballroom Radio Network, he's popped in and he wants to know, with what the Bears did in the draft and free agency, where do you now see the Bears finishing at the end of this 2020 NFL season? Do you think they're going to be competing for the title, a division title? Do you think they're a Super Bowl contender? Or do you think it's more of the same, 8-8 or worse?
If Nagy keeps doing what Nagy has done in the first 2 years, we're looking at potentially 8-8, possibly 10-6, somewhere between those two things. Mm-hmm. If he calls plays which are to what our team is good at doing, and he puts people in the best position to actually show their talent and to be able to perform, we've got an opportunity of being a good team. I think the Packers are going to regress, and there might be even potentially, that's got to be the team that we've got to look forward to beating, is the Packers. We need 2 wins there this season. If for no other reason than just to shut the Packer fans up, because I'm sick of them. But I think we can always rely upon Detroit Lions for a Thanksgiving win. I think we can always rely upon them to do their best to sort of shoot themselves in the foot every single year. Mm-hmm. And with Kirk Cousins at Minnesota as the starting quarterback, again, as Shane's mentioned ad nauseum, there's not really much of a reason to fear the Vikings. We seem to have them in our back pocket. So if we can win the division in terms of those games, that's going to go a long way to determining what we do as a team. Our defense, I don't see regressing, something that Adam Jahns talked about as a talking point. I don't see a regression now. I only actually see some improvements. I think some of the cornerbacks we've picked up are going to make that defensive secondary nastier, and having Robert Quinn makes that defense much nastier as well, certainly than we had with Leonard Floyd at the other position. That's going to make it legitimate. If you think about that defense, if Quinn's going to play on the right, then that means that Khalil Mack's going to go wherever he wants, pretty much. You could run him and Quinn on the same side, or you can run him on the same side as Akeem Hicks. What are you going to do as an offense with that coming out? You got Bilal Nichols in there. You got Roy Robertson Harris, who we've seen with the footworking, working and getting faster and more agile, and equally as strong as he previously was. Bilal Nichols, the same, healthy, able to contribute. It's going to be a nasty defense. So I think we can rely upon that. It's a case. The offensive line has to be fixed if we've got any chance of going into the playoffs and going deep into the playoffs. That's where it's going to have to be fixed, both in pass protection, and then Nagy's going to have to keep the run honest. If he doesn't do that, we're done for. If he keeps the run game going, and we see sort of 800 to 1,000 plus yards for David Montgomery and maybe 400 to 500 for the other running backs, we've got a good chance of going into the playoffs and potentially deep into the playoffs with that defense.
Mm. There you go. Hey, I gotta apologize to Fat Mike. I said the title of the show incorrectly again. It is the Fat Mike Sports talk show. I think I got it right now. But Bearlissimo, another great show here. I'm going to tell you I love these shows. My IQ always shoots up a couple of points. My football IQ, that is. My regular IQ is always going to be down in the single digits. But great show with you and Adam Jahns, the first 15 minutes, and then you breaking down what transpired in the draft. Take it away, Mr. George Bayliss.
So don't forget to listen later on to Shy Fans in the Stands with two of our favourite people, Greggy Sunshine, Baby Blue Eyes Braggs, and Joey Two Scoops. Mandel, just make sure you're listening to that later. Don't forget one of the guys I didn't talk about, which was Eisner. He's going to be a special guest on the first ever YouTube Bears Bar Room 100 Proof. You've got to be on that live. Set your notifications now when they're going live on Bears Bar Room YouTube. Make sure you're in that, because that's going to be an absolute. That guy, I didn't mention him in the show, Aldo, but that guy is nasty. Fantastic name and a great player at Yale. He looks like a potentially, if you want an attitude changer on the offensive line, he is the guy. It's going to be great to listen to him. Draft on Tap this week, I am told, are having Greg Gabriel to break down the Bears draft. So if you, Greg Gabriel, former collegiate director for the Chicago Bears, he should know what he's talking about. And obviously Scouts Corner, and then obviously listen to the rest of the shows because they're all fantastic. And again, Aldo, thank you so much for the opportunity to be on Bears Bar Room Radio. Bear down.